Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Advisory Committee for the town of Quispamsis for Tuesday, March 24th. With that being, we'll go on to approval of the agenda, but before we do that, we have an adjustment to item 7C, 54 Merlin Drive. Unfortunately, the applicant cannot attend, so we're gonna have a motion to defer that until next meeting. We'll just have to defer it, I guess. Thank you. Can I have approval of that agenda? Brent?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we proceed with.
Thanks, Kendall. It's okay, we're good. Now we're good. Can we vote on that, please? That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, we'll move on to item 3, disclosures of interest. Any?
I'd like to, Mark Henry Hatfield, like to just remove myself from item D.
Thank you, Mark. That's 80 Millennium Drive. Thank you very much. With that being, we'll move on to item 4, approval of previous minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the previous minutes, please? Mr. Guest.
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder on that? Ken?
Second that.
Thank you, Kendall. Can we have a vote on that, please? Thank you. That motion's carried unanimously. With that being, we'll move on to item 5, business arising from previous minutes. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Brenda, can I have a seconder on that, Brenda?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously. With that, we'll move on to item 6, unfinished business. None being, we'll move on to item 7, new business. I'd just like to go over some procedural items first prior to that. So how we work is the applicant comes up. We talk about the application. The questions could come from PAC members or members online or in the audience to ask the applicant. If anyone wants to come up and speak for or against that, I'll ask 3 times. You got to come up, state your name to the podium, and there's a 10-minute timer. And every additional person that comes up, it has to be about additional items, not about the same topic that someone obviously already previously spoke about. So please add any further data, any further information you can add or talk about, whether it's for or against. So you have a 10-minute timer per person. Then applicant, any rebuttal or for sits back down. The applicant comes back up. There's no further questions from the audience at that time. Then town asks questions, and then we do a motion to file for keep it or turn it up, keep it or approve it. So with that being, we're going to move on to item 7A. That's 205 Pettingill Road. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state their name for the record, please? And we're going to have Jennifer introduce that item for us. State your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Erin Schreier.
Erin Schreier?
Yes.
Thank you, Erin. Jennifer, you want to introduce that item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee members. The request before you is for a temporary use for a daycare facility for a maximum of 15 children at 205 Pettingill Road. The intention of the application is to seek approval through this temporary use, and then to, once the municipal election is behind us, to seek a rezoning of the property to institutional to permit a daycare use at this location. Section 3B1 of the zoning bylaw does allow the Planning Advisory Committee, subject to terms and conditions that they consider fit, to authorize for a temporary period not exceeding 1 year, a development otherwise not permitted, otherwise prohibited by the bylaw. The Community Planning Act under Section 53(2)I does grant the PAC authority to further approve a temporary use for an additional 1 year, but under other conditions such as council has agreed to review a zoning and one other condition is just evading me at this exact moment. The landowner's desire to use the residential building other than as a dwelling unit in a residential zone is prohibited by the zoning bylaw and municipal plan. Notification letters were sent to neighboring properties. We have received a number of concerns about this application. They've all been provided to you in the agenda, and I did provide sort of a summary, if you will. But before we get into that, I also wanted to point out a few other things. Municipal Plan 054 does require industrial institutional uses to provide buffering against residential properties. With the concerns received from the property on that are abutting this subject lot, it's recommended that the committee request a buffer zone, a privacy fence of some sort to be established. The zoning bylaw 6L2 does contain provisions. It does limit to 15 children, as does the municipal plan when the daycare is found in a residential zone, which the zoning still is. So that's why the cap has been, the children cap has been maxed at 15 for this application. However, if rezoning is approved, that number could increase. We also, staff are recommending a revised site plan that identifies the parking spots and the flow of traffic on the site. There are some concerns from staff for that. One of the concerns that staff has is regarding the septic system, the way in which wastewater is going to be dealt with on this site. There's an existing septic field there now. And it was there for a 3-bedroom unit or dwelling. So I believe the Department of Justice and Public Safety will need to inspect the septic system to make sure that it does meet or exceed what's required. And the town will be looking for those types of letters from the Department of Justice saying that they have no issues with any of the septic's ability to meet the demands on the lot before we can provide any permits to the lot. So we're also requesting a change of use be submitted, just so that because there is a change of use, it's going from residential use to potentially to a daycare use. So we have the conditions that are provided in here for the members that's associated with something. So the permit being that of a change of use permit. As I said earlier, we sent out the notifications. We received 3 letters of concern. Some of them are very detailed. There's concern about rezoning a daycare, an R1 lot to a daycare. They consider that this may be viewed as a spot rezoning. There are traffic concerns for the area, noise and privacy impacts, personal liability, loss of a residential unit on the market for others to use as a home. They feel that there's an existing 11-acre institutional property that's abutting that could support this use without the use of this daycare, or the residential dwelling. And they feel that if it's approved, it'll have negative impacts on the abutting residential properties. I guess that's all I have for you now, and I'm available to answer questions that the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Ms. Schreier, you would have received the same package we didn't mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or members of the public asking you some questions?
Yes, if possible, I would like to just discuss the application. And I do have, yeah, okay, perfect. Do I control that or is somebody else? Okay, I'll just look at you, Chrissy. Okay, perfect, thank you. I can start now. Is that okay? Okay. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to my application this evening. My name is Erin Scryer, and I am one of the owners of the Woods Early Education Corp. Operating at the Woods campus at 193 Pettingill Road. The Woods is the operating company associated with the property purchased at 205 Pettingill Road, which I am here to speak about this evening. My business partner and co-owner, Jennifer Arsenault, is also here this evening. The Woods is part of a larger early learning and childcare group of company called Origins. In Quispamsis, the Origins group of companies serves approximately 350 children, ages 12 months to 12 years, and we employ more than 75 people across 2 locations in Quispamsis. Last year, we celebrated 10 years of operations in our town. Across St. John and Quispamsis, Origins operates over 800 childcare spaces, the majority of which are designated spaces participating in the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Agreement, which is bringing high-quality, accessible, and affordable childcare to our community. We are fully licensed, regularly inspected, and in excellent standing with the province of New Brunswick. Tonight, I am applying for approval to operate a small-scale childcare program at 205 Pettingill Road for 15 children. On the application, we do have 3 staff, but I did want to note that that would be the max number of people kind of taking care of that site. There's only 1 staff required for 15 school-age children, and this is within the existing dwelling on the property. I do want to acknowledge, as Jennifer spoke about, that there have been letters of opposition, and I've read those carefully. I appreciate the time and thought that went into those and appreciate the opportunity to speak to them tonight for you. So as Jennifer mentioned, I just want to elaborate a little bit on how we arrived at this application. My initial contact with the town was to rezone the property, but given the timelines associated with the municipal election and the municipal plan that the new council will be looking at, I was advised that it wouldn't be appropriate to proceed in that way. And so I was advised that based on that direction, we should look at a temporary use in the interim. My intention over time is to pursue rezoning through the full and appropriate process once the municipal plan is in place. So what I'd like to do now is briefly show you how this property fits in our existing operation. So Chrissy, if you can just, so here in green, so both the shaded in green and then the outline green, as you could tell, I had to paint that on. It's not very straight. But that entire green section is the Woods Early Education Campus of 12 acres. And then you can see in red the property at 205 Pettingill Road that we've purchased as part of our operation there. So at the existing property, 193, we serve 220 children across our 11 acres. As you can see, 205 is a space that sits alongside our existing operation. It's an edge we already manage and land our children are familiar with along the boundary. This is not introducing something new to the area. It is an extension of an operation that exists next door. If you could change to the next slide. This is a picture of the property in question. I just thought it might be helpful to picture it. If you kind of frequent the Pettingill Road, you may recognize it. And for me, what was interesting is you can actually see one of our buildings in the background. So the white building there is the building the children affectionately call the cottage, and that is a 30-space school-age program. And I was hoping to highlight for you how the land connects there. So the backyard of 205 and then the front of 193 really share all that land in between the 2 properties. Thank you. So acquiring 205 Pettingill Road allows us to think more intentionally about how the space could support children safely and appropriately as part of our existing well-functioning program. I want to respond to a question raised in letters about why we would not expand further on our 11 acres, and we have considered that. Let me tell you, we consider all angles often. However, at this time, construction is simply very cost prohibitive for us. This approach, using an existing structure on a neighboring property, allows us to respond to a need in a much more practical and immediate way, while still being thoughtful about how the space connects to our existing operation. There is also a very real and immediate need behind this application, and I thought it was fitting that I know the next agenda item is also related to childcare. Most of our 40 preschool children who will be entering school next year, who attend the Woods currently, do not have a space in our after-school program. despite being zoned for either Chris Saunders or Lakefield Elementary, the schools that we serve. In childcare, we experience bottlenecks really quickly. New children are waiting to enter while others have not finished our programs, especially when we think about school age and most children staying until grade 5. Next year, we have just 4 children aging out of our program and 40 children looking for space. This application would allow us to expand our capacity to support families who have already been with us for many years and have children transitioning to school. These are not new families, but families seeking continuity of care, which is exceptionally important for young children's development. The need for childcare is reflected directly in parent emails, letters, and communications we receive every week, and that will now ramp up as spring moves along and a new school year is planned for. I also want to briefly acknowledge a concern raised about housing. I understand the importance of housing in our community. At the same time, I must say we are facing a real childcare shortage, and it is a crisis in itself. This application makes use of an existing home to help meet the childcare need in a practical and immediate way. There are also concerns raised about parking, septic systems, and site capacity. Those are really important considerations that I know well, and they are addressed through our licensing procedure with the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development. So all of those pieces are pieces that I definitely have to have checked off before I can even get a license for childcare. Any of those requirements would be met before operation. Concerns about traffic and neighborhood impact are understandable. However, it's important to, I think, consider the context of this area. There are already additional childcare centers and large schools nearby. In that broader context, an additional 15 children is a very small increase. It does not materially change the nature of the area. This area of our town already supports children and families very well. It has the municipal infrastructure needed for families, including sidewalks and crosswalks, which are very important for safety and accessibility, and that are not found everywhere in the town. There is also a concern about what could come of this in the future. As members of the committee know well, any future rezoning would require a completely separate process, including public consultation and council approval. I also want to reinforce that we are not new to this community. We are already operating next door at a much larger scale and in a way that is compliant, safe, and well-regarded. I have included a letter of support, I think it's been up there, from Deputy Minister Ryan Donaghy from the Department of Education and Early Childhood Development, which speaks both to the need to childcare in our region and confidence in our operation as a provider. So both at the family level and the provincial level, there is clear recognition both of the need and our ability to meet it. At its core, this application is about access to childcare for families in our community. This is a practical way to support that need in a location that is already connected to our existing operation. This application, I feel, is a measured, staff-advised step to respond to a real need in a way that builds on existing trusted operations. I'm committed to meeting all requirements and operating responsibility as we always endeavor to do. I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for that information. With that being, any members of PAC like to ask some questions for the applicant? Kendall.
I just have a few questions. The one slide you did show, it's your 2 properties are abutting, like the current operation and this house.
Yeah.
They're the same, they share the same property line, correct?
That's right.
Okay. Like how many complaints a year would you receive from non-parents in regards to traffic or noise complaints or?
In a year, I would say, if I can say it this way, in our 5 years of operation,
Right.
we've probably had 4.
4?
Yeah.
And are they in regards to, because there's 2 schools there, and
Right.
a lot of the, I actually live in the subdivision behind there, and a lot of the kids go up to the schools to play
Right.
after school. So is it noise complaints or is it traffic or what are the?
They're not noise or traffic. I think the best way to say it tonight is they typically are from the same neighboring property and just concerns about, children in the area.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
to my knowledge, have not received anything outside of that about noise or traffic.
It's not like in the greater, like subdivisions, like behind or,
No,
No.
no,
Okay.
not that I've received.
and this might be a staff question, but I think that area, like it's a school zone. Typically they're like 30 kilometers an hour.
Yeah,
Like,
it is.
is there a lot of, like your current customers are bringing their children? Is there a lot of traffic issues that they experience?
Not that
that
they
you-
expressed to us. I mean, it is busy. If you're there in the morning, you know, that whole area kind of up and down the Pettingill, even down to Lakefield, right? There's a lot of traffic. It is highly monitored by the police, which is
It is.
helpful. So, you know, I feel like the speed, is pretty good and stays low. We know that there's people turning either into the woods or into Chris Saunders. You know, I do think in the beginning there was an adjustment period for the community to realize, oh, there's another entry here that people might be entering or exit when the big building at the woods was built. But recently, you know, we haven't received any concerns or know of any, you know, accidents that have occurred in that space.
Right, okay, all right, perfect,
Okay, thank you.
thanks.
Thank you, Kendall. Any other questions from PAC members? Brent?
Yeah, same thing, Aaron. I have several questions to ask. I know the septic's been addressed, but I guess the other question, have you talked to anybody about the well there? Whether it has capacity for 30-plus people?
No, I have not, but again, we do have to submit like an inspection report to public safety, public health, I call it, but so that would be covered through that process.
Okay, so my other question is, we're talking 15 people, or 15 children initially, 30 with rezoning, when you go through that process. When I look at your drawings, it shows over 40.
I'm sorry, could you say
When I
that
look at
again?
your floor plans,
Yeah.
it shows 40 children in that facility.
So when I created those actually for fire, that fire plan, and so fire wants to see like the maximum capacity that the building can support. In childcare for after school, the ratio is 1 to 15, so typically you would either do 15 or 30. I suppose you could go higher than that. It's just an inefficient way to operate and isn't typically what we would do. But yeah, that floor plan does show that there possibly is space for that. So I have to have fire and education come in and they do measurements as well. And often our measurements will conflict a little bit in terms of what they might take off for walking space, for example. I didn't do that yet. So that would be overshooting for a bit, but it may fit more than 30. The basement is also a question. I guess I just will say, this really was my first step. I have to know if I can even get zoning. Honestly, based on how tonight goes, I do have my fire plan from the Department of Justice and Public Safety, I suppose it is, and we'll have the local fire marshal in to look at the space should we be successful in our application tonight.
So has public safety signed off on your fire plan?
No, so they submit like a plan to me saying this is all the stuff you need to do to be compliant, and actually the fire marshal he's gonna come look at the property and tell me very specifically what would need to happen. It's all doable, I suppose. Again, tonight was my first step in the application process.
Okay, so based on the information that public safety has provided, do they have a concern with potentially having 15 children in the basement and only one egress?
No. Do they have concern? That's where I'm not, you know, in one of my current buildings, I have children in a lower level and it's not a concern. It's been grandfathered in. Since I've built things and you've had to have different egress and fire exits. So that's actually one of my big questions to the fire marshal is, can we even have children in this space? And if that's a no, then it's, you know, we're limited to what's upstairs, which I think I might have measured for closer to 18.
24 up.
20, okay,
Okay. No, those are my questions for now. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Dwight, you want to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, as we move through the process, that it's important to keep in mind that the request tonight is for temporary use, and as indicated in the staff report, it's for 15 children. The rezoning is a whole separate process, another application, public hearing, all that type of stuff. So just important to keep that in mind as you consider the application before you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight. Any further questions for the applicant? Brenda?
For you, Mr. Chair.
Oops, go ahead, Mark.
To the applicant, the property itself at 205, will you be using that property in outdoor use, or will you be using 197 and creating an existing path to use for the children for an outdoor space?
Yeah, the vision would be that the children will utilize the outdoor space at 193 or 197. As the member, there's a couple PIDs up there, would be utilizing that property. It's really, you know, as I explained to Jennifer earlier this week, we have to have indoor licensed space for licensing. So even though we're offering a nature-based program, our children hardly even go inside in the summer and beautiful months. We have to have that indoor licensed space. So really it's a landing pad or a base camp for children, and certainly in very inclement weather would be used. But the outdoor space would be used at 193 and 197. That is our intention. Again, I would have to have this plan approved by the Department of Education ultimately. But from what I know about school age care, you can have your play space up to 300 meters away from your indoor care. So I can't see it being a problem and us functioning up there for the most part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda?
My question is about staffing. How many people did you say you need for 15 children?
One
One?
for school age children, sorry.
Oh, school age, but if you look at your plans, there's no space for 15 children at one time.
In how the home is laid out, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be another thing that we have to take out with the Department of Education. We would have areas in the company that are like that there's different rooms, but it's fairly open concept. There's school age children, so the requirements for supervision are slightly different. That has been approved, and you can use kind of the upper level, as long as, you know, the educator is zoning properly and moving about, then that is acceptable. There has been other instances where, nope, they want to kind of license room by room, and then, you know, those are things I would have to consider, because if it was a license by room, you would have additional staff requirements.
But if I look at this, the only place that's either potentially 15 would be the basement. You have one there on the basement that's lot 6 is 13. Upstairs you had one would take 6, 3, 2 that take 3 each, 1, 7, 1, 5. That's your five spaces upstairs. And downstairs you have space number 6 can take 13, and then 7 and 8 they're not even making.
Right. Yeah, so I understand what you're saying. So downstairs has the biggest open space that, yes, the department, yes, okay, measures for 13, you can have 13. Upstairs is where the conversation would come in my view, and what I would be positioning to my inspector is the kitchen. So the kitchen wouldn't be used for kitchen purposes, so that whole space, you have to remove your appliances typically, but that whole space along with the front living room, the kind of entry, I should have brought you pictures of inside, but the entry and hallway are fairly open concept area. And then, you know, the spaces that are in the 2 bedroom, well, you have floor plans, sorry. In the bedrooms would be the question of whether they're gonna let me have children, you know, kind of licensed for those bedrooms. We don't dictate how children move around in the space. They could all be together in the kitchen, for example, doing an activity. But you do have to provide adequate square footage that, you know, if they wanted to spread out type of thing, they'd be looking at all that space.
But the way I'm looking at that, if you say 1 for 15, they could be half upstairs and half downstairs and moving back and forth. And how do you supervise 15 children on the go?
Well, they are school-age children. So, I mean, there is, again, a little bit more space there for not always having that direct supervision. If we think about when we're outside on kind of the 11 acres, certainly you have to be accounting for your group of children, and as an early childhood educator, you're always counting children. But certainly they don't all have to be together as a group. I don't think that would be probably approved that we would have children upstairs and downstairs. If we were to use both levels, we would need another staff.
But it sounds like you had some in and some out. People
Indoors and
kids are
outdoors?
going outdoors?
No, not with, they would have to have their own teacher to be able to do that.
So, but they think, it says you don't have to have a fence-in yard
That's right.
for that daycare.
Right. For school-age children, the requirement from the province, you don't have to have a fenced yard, that's right. So, but it would be the idea, if you only had 15 children in there, they'd all have to be going outside. They move together as a group.
But I think, I don't understand how you can control it. All school-age children should be some younger. I think the desperation for people's babies a year and over, that's hard to, because they have to have more supervision,
Right.
like higher
There's a
numbers.
need for childcare for all of it, I'll be honest with you. Like, we, again, have many, many designated spaces, which are your 5 and under. That's the Canada Child Care Agreement. My conversations with the province recently are about school age. One, there's no more of those Canada Child Care Agreement spaces to give out currently. And B, they're just, the wait list for school age is growing. And to your point, also about the groups and ages of children, the nice thing is where we have the abutting property and we have a 100 school-age children total up there, is that we can divide the children into groups, and we do. So we typically have like a K to 2 group. We have a 3 to 4, and then maybe our 5s. Fives, again, grade 5, sorry, developmentally very different than kindergartners. So we can do that. So it could be operationally, should this be approved and I'm able to use that space, that becomes the space for our eldest children maybe. So that the supervision and the activities that those children want to do are common, and it's facilitated that way.
And you're looking at the septic system, and they're going to see if it take 15 children? What about 30?
It would be more for 30. So, I'll be looking at it. It's a little bit tricky about this temporary approval, for me, to do it for 15, and then in a year, if we were approved and wanted to increase the number, then I don't have the right septic, so.
Yeah, that's gonna be looked after in the next
Yeah.
rezones, correct, Dwight? Yeah.
But I have a question. If you get your rezoning, is there a maximum number of children you could have in that zone? Like institutional? Is there limits from the government about how many children?
There's
Because you have
a-
200 on the other one.
Yeah, you have to have adequate space. So it's 35 square feet per child. So they would measure the home, and whether, they would measure each room, and I discuss with my inspector how we can flow children and such, and it is solely based on their measurements, how many children. So they measure and they tell me right then with the math how many children can be in this space.
So that's what I read in the drawings, what you've measured out per
Right,
child.
right.
There's 2 empty spaces down there that don't have any numbers on them, but that's the end of my question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Sue?
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
We appreciate you putting an application forward. I think it's important to welcome you again.
thank
And
you.
I know you're answering a lot of tough questions, but that's our job. So just a couple of basic questions for you. So knowing that we haven't done a fulsome review, and that's what the city planners or town planners have mentioned to us, what would happen if by chance you opened for a year and then never received that permanent zoning change? Like, what communication do you plan on telling parents who register their children into the daycare? Like, how are you going to navigate that?
Well, we always endeavor to be transparent with our parents. So, really thinking, right here off the top of my head would be to let them know this is as a temporary and could be only temporary for the year if we weren't successful in the rezone. Operationally, our aim is to always be working these children into our projections. So, if, and I would know this is temporary, it's like, okay, we got to fit them into the other spaces somehow should we not be successful. Projections is one of kind of Origin's niche things where we you know, you have a lot of people talk and think about wait lists for children and for childcare centers. We don't maintain a wait list. We project out, we can tell you when we can take your child. So in that vein, on the other side, we would be working them into the program and then also letting families know that, you know, should this not be successful, we're not going to have space for your child, and to try to encourage them to look at other solutions.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. One more question for you, and I know it's great if you can operate for 4 or 5 years and only receive a couple of complaints, right? Like any business will likely have people who are unsatisfied in some fashion. But I don't want to glaze over even one concern. Can you elaborate on what that concern or concerns have been, just so I can have more insight into? We know it's not traffic, correct?
No, it's not traffic. It's about children on the property. So we do have, as you can see from the map, and there might be a better picture, but we do have some abutting residences, like even further out into the property. And so there has been concerns about children either crossing property lines, concerns about what that means for the neighbors in terms of their risk or what they could be liable for. That has been the concern. I think it's new to the community and neighbors that children aren't necessarily in a fence. We take great pride in that. I love that we've been able to remove the fence and do that. We have fencing, but then there's spaces where there's not, and that the children can be truly without the walls and in nature. And I will say that as an organization and operationally, we've had to, you know, adjust things and think about what that looks like, and what groups of children that can work well for, and what groups of children maybe we don't want, you know, kind of at the outer ends of the property. I will share here too that, you know, and I share this with the teams all the time. We do have 11 acres, so please don't play on the boundaries, you know. Like, we do endeavor to be good neighbors and to give people their space. We have lots of space. But, you know, those have been the concerns, mostly from our, you know, kind of earlier in our startup. We are the first and only that I know of nature-based childcare center that does serve infants and toddlers. Typically, they begin at 3 and 4 years of age. So we have had some, you know, some learning to do there around operations and movement of children to ensure that everyone's safe, everyone's accounted for, and also that our neighbors feel that we're respecting our boundaries on the property as well. So that's been the nature of the concerns that I have, you know, kind of been involved with.
Have you been able to address those concerns when they happen? So as a business owner, if a customer has a concern or a neighbor has a concern, have you taken it upon yourself to reach out to those people so that the surrounding residents know that you're obviously a very successful, well-spoken entrepreneur, but have you demonstrated that to your neighbors as well?
I feel that I have. You know, when there was a concern brought up, that we had a discussion about it, that, you know, I think I'm in the business of a lot of people. I say to people, we're not machines and we're not AI, and which is, you know, good to a certain extent. And you can have kind of your policies and procedures, but there is lots of room for human error and those pieces. And I do apologize in advance to people about those things, or, you know, maybe a policy or procedure that doesn't look as tight as it can be, and certainly address that with my teams. And I feel that I have shared that with our neighbors whenever there has been a concern. And, you know, again, is kind of always going back to them just to reinforce, like, please give people their space. Like, we don't need to be right on boundary lines. Even when something, you know, of course, there's one area that's very enticing to the children, just because I think of years and years of it kind of being an area where people left things. So there's lots to the children. They think they're artifacts that they're uncovering in the dirt and when the snow leaves. So, you know, it can be a little bit of balance there, but certainly the team is very well aware of our boundaries and of, you know, kind of keeping their space to the boundary.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Any other questions for the applicant from members of PAC? None being, anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Please come up and state your name. Ms. Schreier, if you have a seat, please. Please state your name for the record, please.
Kelly Gallant.
Mr. Glant, the floor is yours for 10 minutes.
All right, thank you. Good evening, members of the committee. First, I will begin with residential fairness. We purchased our land and invested a considerable amount of money.
It's on. Can you speak up a little bit? Do I gotta turn it up a bit? Mike?
Okay. Okay, so
Sorry.
first, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. First, I'll begin with the residential fairness. We purchased our land and invested a considerable amount of money to build with the understanding we were among a row of residential properties. We did not choose to live next to a highly active business, and we would not have purchased such a location. Popping up a commercial operation alters the neighborhood's character after investment has been made and would be changing the rules after the fact. Commercial businesses should be located where infrastructure like level topography, turning lanes, and municipal water and sewer can support them. Allowing this application undermines the market value and security of every home in the town. Landowners expect to have their residential surroundings remain stable. Spot rezoning is unfair. Further to this, the staff report mentions future plans to blend this site into the larger 11 acres, plus the addition of a second ingress-egress driveway or a thoroughfare. Our property is downgrade from every angle for such modifications. If this is rezoned institutional, would we have opportunity to respond should this new driveway be requested? And what about conditions set out for 205? Would they extend to the overall 11 acres if these are blended, or disappear because the 11 acres doesn't have any? Next, I would like to address the environmental concerns we see with this proposal. Our property, specifically our wellhead, is 4 meters downgrade from the pit in question. Any breach in the aging septic system would leach into our property and contaminate our well. We believe the house at 205 was constructed sometime in the 80s, potentially making it 40 years old. The pit does not have the square footage or the width to meet the current residential code for 3 to 5 person dwelling, let alone a commercial business of up to 45 people. The surrounding properties share underground water resources, and there is a duty to ensure that the resources are there for everyone. The proposed number of people would be a significant increased draw from this shared resource. As one user draws out more, all other users must work harder to get a share. That strain could lead to drawing excess silt, sediment, and minerals that could damage our equipment, filters, and appliances. If an overloaded septic system discharges at too fast a rate, the contaminated water will find its way to the water source and the wells become unusable. Without the viable water, several of the properties in the area become worthless. Next, the next thing I will address is the street layout in front of 205 Pettingill Road. The physics of the street at this location are not safe for the amount of turning traffic a daycare would bring. Coming from the west, drivers crest the blind hill and begin a descent of 14 meters to the driveway in question, which is 134 meters away and only visible when in front of the driveway at 194. This is a 10.5% negative grade. If a vehicle is stopped in the road to turn left into the driveway for 205, the oncoming driver has dangerously little time to react. Without a turning lane and no apparent room to facilitate one, the waiting driver will be holding up traffic, trying to focus on the traffic from the east and dash when they see an opening. There is possibility under pressure to not notice a pedestrian on that sidewalk. Approval of this scheme could be creating a collision trap. Braking distances increase when going downgrade, even more so for the school buses in the area. Lawyers we consulted with thought no turning lane for such a location was a very bad idea. It dramatically increases the risk of rear-end collisions. Also, the speed reduced for school zone is only in effect from September to June, further increasing risk during the summer months. Finally, in November of 2021, I advised the operator that their property line at the rear was marked with simple rope and orange tape and asked our staff and children to respect the boundaries. I clarified we did not want harm or injury on our property. We were concerned for the risk of being named liable if such an injury happened. This area has an old and loose rock retaining wall with a very steep slope. We had to make contact again in March of 2022, asking that the children not lean against that simple rope while throwing rocks on our property. The operator's eventual response, 11 days later, was curt. We apologize if the children were throwing rocks on your property. It won't happen again. It was never about the rocks. It was about the safety and our liability. Had the 2017 recommendations of a 3-meter buffer been set, this may have been avoided. I am very much opposed to a buffer comprised of trees, hedges, or shrubs that is already in place at the rear and has been breached 3 times. A 2-meter tall privacy fence would provide some visual barrier, but do little to block the noise of 37 children, or 35, or however many it would be, playing near our front door. It would also only run along the east-west boundary to the back corner, leaving the rear of our property open and the traffic back and forth very close to our property line. At one time, we had survey stakes that are no longer visible. How would the location of a fence be validated for appropriate distances for that line? I would like to end with these questions. If this application was to somehow be approved and we have more problems as neighboring property owners, where do we turn for assistance? If conditions are not met, where do we turn? We had issues from the rear of our property and the town could not help us because no conditions had been set out. The police told us it was a civil matter, so we were left on our own. I asked that this application for the residential lot at 205 be denied. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, maybe we'll get to those questions after. Gonna ask again, anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item, please come up and state your name for the record, please.
Kevin Hicks. Committee members, town staff, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention. I reside on Pettingill Road, 205 on one side and 197 and 199 at the rear. So I'm on the same piece of land as Kelly. Okay. I was advised that each person had 10 minutes to speak. Okay. Not for that. Kelly and I are from the same address. I'm assuming that we had 10 minutes each. And we, as you could see from our written proposal, we had many, many considerations. I'd like to reference back first to 2017 when the 11 acres was rezoned from residential to institutional for a maximum of 60 childcare spaces at the time. There's 220 spaces there now. A variance to operate for up to 15 children was granted at the time because it was reasonable to assume the large property was a good case for rezoning. Lots of area to have children. A staff recommendation at the time was to have the property marked at a 3-meter distance from the boundary. It was under your hand, Mr. Colbert, that recommendation was made. The PAC at the time did not include that recommendation in the motion that was put forward to council. Okay. The application before us today is for a temporary use. The pit is currently R1 with specific conditions for a daycare. I believe sections 6L2C, D, and H would not be met, and the application for temporary use should be denied. The C and D points were the variances that were allowed in 2017. The applicant has noted intention to apply for rezoning to institutional after the May election. We detailed each point of section 21 in the bylaw that refers to institutional zone in our written proposal. So I'll only add emphasis this evening. Section 21G1 addresses parking lot stall sizes and yards that abut a street or an R zone shall be 50% landscaped open space. That's word for word out of the bylaw. Section 6P5C specifically notes institutional developments, which this would potentially become one, and lists 4 conditions for parking for surface, drainage, curbs, and movement space. We feel the 2,454 square meters that this property has cannot reasonably accommodate the parking, in and out access, and a turning area. Rezoned use needs 1 disability and 11 standard spaces based on 30 children and 6 staff has been in the memo that we received earlier. All expansion possibilities need to be considered now. Operational adjustments later will not return to PAC. The floor plan has 37 possible children, and age-specific child groups dictate different educator ratios, between 1 and 3 to 1 and 15. A high of 13 staff and a low of 3 would be the range for those 37 children. If it's not reasonable for conditions to rezone be met, it does not merit temporary use either and should be denied. What is written in the bylaw must be followed, and institutional abutting residential requires a well-defined parking lot. The temporary use cannot be looked at in isolation. If the owner were permitted to begin serving 15 families for daycare, and I think Mrs. Baxter covered this one, there'd be 15 unhappy families down the road. When rezoning is initiated, the PAC is going to be asked again to consider factors around the rezoning, and it would be, I think, a wild contradiction to approve anything now and have to deny it later. Rezoning a lot between 2 residential PIDs could open the door to the same on any street in the town. If 205 can be changed from residential to institutional business, what reason would there be to disallow it anywhere else? Rezoning one lot, among others of separate category, is referred to as spot rezoning and has been observed to benefit one landowner at the detriment of neighbors. Research and legal opinion indicates that spot rezoning opens the town to a challenge with the Assessment and Planning Appeal Tribunal under the Community Planning Act of New Brunswick. I'll pivot here to a different topic. When we submitted our application objections to the PAC secretary for the February memo we received, we included copies of correspondence with the applicant. The secretary was obliged to reply back and advise that they couldn't be included because they would become public documents. Our conclusion? Privacy reasons. So privacy needs to be respected. And I think Jennifer and I had a conversation last week about privacy obligations the town holds close. Including the messages was to show the time the operator took to respond to concerns that we've already brought up about the children in this steep back area of our property. On June 22nd, 2022, I was working from home. The alarm sounded that the patio door was open. So I got up off my chair and went to the patio door. A child about this high, standing in my kitchen. I asked, "Are you lost?" And the child replied, "I lost." I don't know to this moment how old the child was. I moved around the child to check on the deck to see if someone was looking for the child, and called out as loudly as possible. I was hoarse after this experience for shouting so loud. I tried calling the daycare and got voicemail. The child had moved further into the house and didn't respond to me suggesting we look for their people. I had a couple of rounds of checking out on the deck, check on the child. Our house is not childproof. There's no child in our home. And calling out from the deck again. Eventually a worker comes in sight and I shouted out that the child was here. Now we have security cameras, and the time from the child appearing in range of the camera to being retrieved by the worker was 9 minutes. And I don't know if it's convenient to bring up how large a distance it is from our property line to where our house is. 9 minutes from the child appearing on camera to being retrieved. I don't know how many minutes it was that child was not in anybody's care from the top of our property line to our deck. I told the worker I'd be calling the authorities. A police officer later showed up to ask how a child came to be in our home. I've never had a police officer come to my door. In a short period of time, this is 3 people in our private spaces. Our privacy was infringed upon. I ended up contacting the Education and Early Childhood Development. They're the authorities that I meant. And 2 staff from there came to our house on another day. The staff confirmed the child was autistic and required a 1-to-1 worker. 1-to-1. 9 minutes in our camera to being retrieved. We showed the video to the early education staff, and we provided a copy to the police. This was June 22nd. We received an email on October 2nd, 3 months after the event, from the applicant. The operator advised they know where their liability lies, their response is satisfactory to EECD, and they had hired an outdoor programming lead. The email also noted that, armed with the video footage, they were better able to understand the event, and the people no longer worked there. Armed with the video. We didn't show it to the operator. We gave it to the police officer. I have a written report from the police that I had to show identification to get. With dates the video was accessed by 2 officers only and that it was not provided to anyone else. Therefore, the applicant could not have seen the video. The police letter also noted information was redacted for privacy and dissemination of the file could only be with permission of the force. So I didn't include that in the pack.
10 minutes, Mr. Hicks. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience, or please come up to the podium, state your name for the record, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carol Hamilton. I reside at 234 Quispamsis Road. So I'm just around the corner, but the back of our property abuts upon the 11 acres. So could you bring up page number 29 for me in the report that shows both the Pettingill and the Quispamsis Road? I first want to state that having daycare spots is so important. We're grandparents of 2 kids. I know how the waiting lists and the turmoil of parents trying to find spots, but I don't think it should be at the expense of the risk and safety of others. My main points are around safety on the Quispamsis Road. So I was, don't know if you know where the crosswalks are on the Quispamsis Road. I'm just going to point to them. When you come up, oh, there we go. So there's a crosswalk right here, and there's a crosswalk right here. So all the conversation has been around this. I want to talk about this.
Where's your house?
My house is right here.
Okay.
Okay. I was coming home from Costco the other day, right around the time school was getting out. And I was coming down Alma Lane, and I was coming down the Quispamsis Road, and I could see the crosswalk. And the crosswalk has these flashing lights. Can you come back to the podium? Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone online can't hear you. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mark. The crosswalk on the Quispamsis Road has these flashing lights. So when I was coming down over the hill, I saw the flashing lights going off on my side coming from my direction. And I could see cars backed up from the stop sign up across the crosswalk. So they were backed up past our driveway and across the crosswalk. With the lights flashing, I saw a group of children coming across the crosswalk and going into that Meadowlark subdivision, with cars coming up around that corner the whole time. There have been a number of times I've been walking my dog, and the signals on the lower side do not work. Stuff fails. Equipment fails. If those kids came out from behind one of those cars that were waiting to go around that corner, and the people came around that other side and didn't see them, and they walked out, and I know we live in Quispamsis, and we've got deer everywhere, but we had a deer hit in that exact spot that died in my yard that we had to call DNR to come take away, and that's where he was hit. He, she, whatever it was. But anyway, so safety, the flashing lights, the kids behind the cars. Don't sacrifice the lives of the existing kids and the safety of that corner. There's a pile of, we've had 3 police reports that we've filed around the traffic and the speed of the cars coming around that corner. And that's outside of the school times and during, but there are police reports there.
What corner's that? The corner of, you're talking the corner of Pettengill and
Yeah, yep.
Stop sign there.
There sure is, both ways. And the police there are no police there. We filed the reports. We'll see them every once in a while in the church parking lot. There's no police there. It is a 3-way stop because there's another entrance. Sorry, there's another entrance to the subdivision. If you go straight down the Quispamsis Road, there's another entrance to that subdivision down there. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I have to say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Going to ask for the last time, third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? You get to come back up in a minute. None being, so could the applicant please come up to the podium? And maybe between yourself and some our officials of the town can answer some of those questions regarding bylaw, but I'll let you speak first. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, there was a lot said and a little bit of time to try to synthesize. I do want to acknowledge what's being raised by our neighbors about the incident with the child. I mean, my heart's pounding now thinking about it, and I regret that incident occurred. But this is not a court process, and the matters being referenced were fully reviewed by the authorities, including police and the Department of Education, Early Childhood Development, and the consequences of that were things that I had to go through with my operation and my teams, and we did so thoroughly.
I got a question on that.
Yeah.
We literally asked you what incidents you had, and they weren't mentioned. Just curious why.
I guess I didn't think this was a court process about the...
No, it wasn't about the court. They asked you about the incidents. Any complaints you had at your site, and you said
I was
4 to 5, none of them were major. That was your answer.
I was trying, so I do have a responsibility. It's even hard for me tonight to speak, and when my neighbors have spoke about the time that it took, like I have to consult counsel, I have to, like legal counsel, I had to consult the Department of Education about what we could say and what we could not say. It's also not my place, you know, it's other people's children and what story or knowledge they want out there in the community about went on with their children. People have very strong feelings about what people know or don't know, and sometimes, you know, I'm learning things every day, but what they, you know, kind of want a communication, you know, do they want a communication out to the, you know, kind of organization or center that such and such has occurred? And it's been interesting to me sometimes when people do not want those things to occur. So I would say, Chairman and members of the committee, I was trying here, I guess, on the fly to kind of discern what I can say and what I cannot say, and to protect those incidents in terms of, yeah, just confidentiality and what I can and cannot say without being able to kind of, I suppose, ask somebody about that right now. When I described, you know, children crossing the boundaries, I mean, that's what I was trying to kind of to bring up without revealing too many specifics on the situation, I suppose. I wasn't trying to evade that. I mean, I've seen the letters. I knew that it would likely be a conversation tonight. I did receive some counsel in advance of this that wouldn't be a big conversation, nor would it be appropriate for a big conversation at tonight's meeting, but maybe they were mistaken.
I guess got one question for myself too, is, why the rush to get it through temporary use now than wait for the full planning, full rezoning once, council comes in? And you indicated that these are all gonna be children already in school, so I would assume they already have a place to go. They're not children that are not in school.
Well, there's lots of children that are in school that don't have appropriate care in place. We hear from parents all the time still looking for care even in March of the school year. And then there's summer. So there's a big demand for summer care for people looking for their school-age children. Also, you know, when the opportunity came to purchase the property, I didn't get to kind of say when that would happen. So, I mean, there was a negotiation, but it wasn't going to wait. So we've taken on this property, and as an organization and a business, you know, we have bills to pay. So that's really around the timing. Is we would like both to, and our licensing process can take 3 to 4 months. So, I mean, summer is probably a pipe dream anyway. We're probably talking about the fall before that we could get everything in place and be able to give parents advance notice that they do have an after-school space for their child. So it really was just for us to lose all those months and not do anything would really impact what we're able or not able to do at that site. So the temporary use, again, was advised as a way that we could start the process. I cannot apply for a license for childcare with education without I have to one of bylaws is one of the first things you have to kind of show that you can even be discussing this property. So again, was really the first step that I had to take in that process.
Okay, thank you. Dwight or Jennifer, can any, like some of the bylaws that Mr. Hicks was stating, are some of those, are most of those related to the permanent use or temporary use? Can we clarify that, Jennifer?
That was concerning the rezoning. I actually,
Are they all rezoning or are they temporary use ones? 'Cause we're here for, my understanding, we're here for temporary use, not rezoning tonight.
That
So
is correct,
anything-
Mr. Chair.
Anything applicable to rezoning is a later date.
that's correct, that's
So,
correct.
I was just trying to address maybe some of the items that Mr. Hicks mentioned. Is that regarding the application tonight, temporary use, or is that rezoning?
I believe that is for the rezoning. His concern is that if it couldn't be met at that time, why
Okay.
would committee approve it now?
Okay,
However, when the rezoning application comes in, there could be a site plan that's submitted along with it that responds to those requirements. So at this time, we are just dealing strictly with the temporary use.
thank you. Any further comments from members of PAC? Kendall?
This is just a question. I understand fences are not aesthetically pleasing, and there's a lot of complaints about fences in other areas of the region, but they actually do work. And the gentleman that was speaking about 201, is there any way that a fence could, you know, give back some of their security and privacy and still achieve your goals? And is that something you'd ever consider? I guess that you don't have to answer that right away. The other question I do have is there's 3 schools in that area. Does children from those schools go to your current institution or
Yes.
for
Yes,
all
they do.
3 or just?
We don't have any children from École Pionnier this year.
Okay.
We're Lakefield and Chris Saunders.
Chris Saunders and Lakefield.
Yes, yeah. And as for a fence, yes, like, I mean, we can talk about a fence when, you know, I think early days there was some discussions about fence for the entire property. I mean, fencing the entire 11 acres is quite against what we're looking to do at the property, but certainly, you know, making it so that our neighbor's property is secure and there's those visual buffers is certainly something we can discuss.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or concerns? Anything from town's perspective? Perfect. All right. Thank you. With that being, member of PAC, like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please. Sue?
I don't have a question for the applicant, so I was waiting for her, thank you, like to step away. I have a question back to our planning department. Thank you for coming back up and addressing those questions. But when you mentioned in the report, and I might have missed something, that we haven't done a fulsome review yet, what would be part of the review that we need to do that we haven't done that would give us more insight? And would that take a long period of time? So if we said no tonight, if we do, we say we don't want to approve this temporary use, what timeline is the applicant looking at based on our extensive review, et cetera?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. I think it was sort of out of context, the whole idea of this fulsome review. That was to do with the municipal plan that's currently under review right now. And so there was an idea that we could, I can't even recall, I know that it was about the municipal plan. Just allow me to flip through my plan.
Jennifer, but I just want to make sure that you've done the review that you need to do. Would you do more to grant, like, obviously permanent drawings, et cetera?
For the rezoning, there would
Be a lot
absolutely need a lot more information,
Yeah.
including detailed site
septic,
plans,
water.
the septic, the water,
Yeah.
et cetera.
Fencing, potentially. Okay. Thank you
Exactly,
for that.
and the buffers that would
Right.
be required at that time.
Okay. Do you anticipate amendments to the bylaws that would change our view of the application tonight? When you say that there's gonna be a review potentially of bylaws under, do you anticipate, you can't predict the future, any amendments that would change how we view this application tonight? Maybe right now you don't, I'm just,
Off the top of my head, I don't. We have been delving quite deep into the updated
we just don't
municipal
wanna be
plan
caught
and
by
zoning bylaw.
surprise
but-
suddenly 2 months down the road if something like this wouldn't get, or does the applicant, when they come back for permanent rezoning. I don't want them to be caught off guard by an amendment that we're contemplating today that could change their, okay.
Nothing that springs to mind, as I say. Yeah,
Okay,
I think
thank
it's
you.
the daycare use, the institutional use is pretty
Steady?
steady as
Okay,
you go.
thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that being, a member of PAC, like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please, regarding temporary use. Thank you. Go ahead, Sue. You're
Okay.
up.
All right. Thinking how I want to word this. I move that we do not accept this temporary use request, not because I just feel it's not the right thing to do. I do feel like there's a sense of urgency that we're rushing before a new council is elected. I don't know, my comfort isn't there. That's not quite a motion, but my motion is, I'll reiterate that we do not approve this temporary use request.
And do we have any reasons why we want to add to that, do we think? What you were saying, a couple?
I think we should wait for the new council to be put in place. I would like us to understand more concretely what amendments are being contemplated. We mentioned that we are reviewing that. I know offhand, I would like affirmation that we're not looking to amend any of the bylaws that would impact this application. So I feel like there's a couple moving parts that we haven't thoroughly understood. Not to say that we wouldn't approve this down the road, Mr. Chair, but right now I feel that's the right thing.
Thank you, Sue. Kendall?
I guess one comment I'd make is I think business needs to continue on whether you have a new council coming or not, but I do question whether we have, like, is there a way to address the concerns so that something like this type of daycare could move forward? Like, is there concerns that we can, like fencing, or is there a greater buffer area, or like, I think I understand some of the concerns, but there's 3-4 schools, there's a lot of police activity in that area, there's like a lot of traffic concerns that are alleviated by the speed limits that are set. You know, I guess I'm not sure that waiting for a new council, like, not every municipality would do that, but
I think the reason for the wait for the new council
yeah,
is
the zoning.
just the
Right,
just the
but-
rezoning. That's because it can't happen in the current time
Right.
frame.
I appreciate that, sure. I understand the zoning piece, but,
Okay. Okay.
but if there's ways to make their lives better and achieve, this daycare's goals, and both, we can achieve something that's good for both, I'd rather see that than wait.
Thank you, Kendall. Dwight.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just sort of an order, there was a motion put forward. There needed to be a second on that motion before you can get into debate around the motion. So establishing whether that motion is on the floor.
And
for
Kendall, you can
debate.
still
Thank you.
second that motion, and then we can argue not to vote against it. So I don't, we need a seconder on that motion. It's still debatable, not necessarily that we have to agree with that motion, it just gets the talking going. Go ahead, Brenda.
I second Sue's motion.
Okay, thank you. Now, we had some debate on the motion with Kendall. Is there any further debate on that motion that we want to discuss regarding the not being approved or approving it with other conditions? Sue?
Can the motion be amended that we revisit this? I think I mentioned when the new council, I know a lot of municipalities don't do that, but if we're delaying this by a month or two, I do feel that's the right thing to do to allow for us to kind of understand the full scope of what amendments are potentially being contemplated to the bylaws. I mentioned in here that we're expediting this by offering something temporary, right? That's when your alarm bells go up and you're like, just wait, let's not expedite and do something we're going to regret. Not to say we will, but I think you have to take that time to fully digest. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. For you, Jennifer, the bylaws are coming up. Like, there's no change in bylaw. When like, this is not happening right when new council comes in, my understanding.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's correct. We're currently reviewing the updated documents for the municipal plan and zoning bylaw, but there's still lots of work to be done with council. What's written there now is certainly not set in stone. It all has to be approved by council, and to be able to answer the question of what's going to be in the upcoming amendment, or not amendments, but the updated plans. I can't speak to that because it's a decision of council, of course. But, what we are looking at is not drastic changes to the institutional use, the daycare uses that are permitted in that zone.
Okay, thank you. And is there a time frame? Is that thinking 6 months, 8 months, year?
I'm hoping for September.
Okay, thank you. All right. So with that being, we can debate that motion, then we can all have a vote on that motion and see if that motion passes, and then we can move on. Kendall, you got a question?
I guess I would like to see if we're gonna delay it, I'd like to be able to tell the applicant what they need to work on. Like, if you're not happy with the application, what do they need to fix in order to be successful?
Okay. Dwight?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. So I think it's important as well to recognize that the request that's before the Planning Advisory Committee tonight is for a temporary use that's for 1 year, which within that 1 year period, there must be an application submitted for rezoning. If it fails for the application to come forward, then the temporary use ends. So the request before Planning Advisory Committee is a temporary use for a maximum of 15 children. Some of the conversations has been around what's happening in the future in terms of the rezoning process and if that gets approved. So I think it's important to understand that PAC is considering the request that's before them tonight and keeping that in context in terms of what are the concerns, can they be mitigated for this particular request. Obviously, if there's a rezoning application that comes in, then that would have to indicate what is the anticipated number of children, what level of intensity on the land will result from that, which obviously will open up a deeper dive into the impacts and how they can be mitigated. So just, it's important to keep those two. If it is PAC's stance at this point in time that they feel that by approving this or moving forward with it, it sort of automatically says then the rezoning is going to happen. You have to keep in mind too, that's two separate processes. And if somebody says, I'm willing to go for a year, and if it doesn't happen after the year, then that's sort of a risk thing. I do understand the rationale and the questions about, let's look at it in terms of, we know, has been indicated, there is a rezoning. So if PAC is, I'd rather approach it at that time and ask for more information, then that should be clearly noted in terms of the motion, in terms of the rationale for making that decision. Just want to make sure there's clear between what's asked and what's potentially coming in the future.
Two separate things.
Correct. Thank you.
Brent, do you want to ask a question? No? Okay.
No.
Any further debate on that? The motion on the floor is that the current application is not approved, and we have a seconder on that. Mr. Guest?
Yeah, a question on timelines, trying to keep the two things separate. When can the rezoning process start, and what is the approximate timeline for rezoning?
The rezoning, through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee members, the rezoning could begin after the new council is sworn in. And so the first meeting, I believe, is in early June. And I believe that I shared with the applicant what the timeline was, and I'm pretty sure it was October, because there's a public presentation that would be required because the underlying zoning is residential, which would need to be changed through the municipal plan amendment. So needing both a municipal plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment, you start adding up the public presentation, a 30-day waiting period, then it comes back, and then it's out for a public hearing. Then it goes to PAC, so we'd be looking at into the fall before the rezoning would be approved. Or, yes, considered for approval, sorry.
Thank you, Jennifer. That being, motion's on the floor to deny it, and then we can always, once that's done, if it's becomes approved, we can, or it gets denied, then we can always go back to the other motion. So with that being said, motion on the table, on the floor is to not approve the current application. I think we need a little more information on that, why we're doing such, rather we don't have enough information on why we're denying that. I think we need some more points behind that. So if we can, someone can amend that. Right now, we're just saying not approved, but we need some reasons why. We have, I believe, on the table is we need some more concrete information on their plan, which kind of goes back to the rezoning. And then we also have, what about the changes to the bylaws? So just like to know if there's any other reasons why we're not even approving this, that someone can add to it. Brent?
I guess my question for Sue and Brenda is a second the motion, instead of pausing this motion, can we table the motion and ask the applicant to come back with additional information concerning the septic, the well, parking lot, stormwater plan, and the fence in the buffer zone? Let them bring back that information that we're looking for. It keeps the process going, and then we can make a better informed decision in 2 weeks or 4 weeks when that information comes back to the PAC.
Brenda?
My point is, I think rezoning gives the people of the community more of a voice to be heard about what's happening on that property. That's why I would support this being denied and started the process of rezoning. It's a voice to council and the PAC. So that's why my point is.
So my understanding, maybe Dwight, you can clarify that. temporary use is for a year, then they have to come back for rezoning. They can't reapply for temporary use again. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in accordance with the Community Planning Act, a temporary use is good for 1 year, and within that 1 year period, there has to be an application to rezone the property.
Thank you, Dwight. So with that being, we'll have to have a vote on that existing motion, please.
Is it being amended to include the comments just a minute ago
About the rezoning?
about more information about the well septic?
Nope, because if we turn it down, that application is done. They have to reapply again for rezoning or a temporary application. Is that correct, Dwight?
No, we're defeating this motion, then the motion go on the floor.
If this motion gets defeated, then we can have another motion to approve with terms and conditions, or other conditions, or defer it. Is that correct, Dwight?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion that's being presented is put forward. Obviously, there is an opportunity for PAC to debate the motion that's been put forward. If the request of Mr. Preston is taken into consideration, there's an opportunity to amend the motion accordingly.
And in saying that, not approved, we would relinquish the not approved and then allow them to come back? Or we still got to
That's
vote on that and
correct.
come back?
You can amend the motion that's
Okay.
put forward.
All right, perfect. Sue?
I'm kind of in line with Brenda. I think we need to do a public process. So
Okay,
based on, I don't like the idea of giving a false sense that we're going to, and I know we're not, and I know there's a lot of regime behind this, but I'm in the property business too, and I know how it works. I'm still holding true to that the initial motion I set forward.
thank you, Sue. With that being, can we have a vote on that motion, please? The motion on the floor is to not approve the current application, and it was motion by Sue and seconded by Brenda. What's happening?
Oh, because you didn't vote.
Who?
I don't know, it's that you there.
Is it a tie?
Yeah,
Huh?
it is.
Is it? There we go. Yeah. So what do we got up there? Trying to read that, so.
Do you want me to read the motion?
Yep.
The PAC does not approve the temporary use, that of a daycare for a maximum of 15 children at 205 Pettingill Road, PID 251447, due to the following reasons. Temporary use feels rushed. 2, new zoning bylaw considerations that may change things. 3, more concrete information required. And 4, take a closer look at the concerns.
Okay. So with that in place, the motion is defeated at this point. So with that being, I open the floor up for a new motion with conditions and terms and conditions that the applicant can come back or we can approve it. Please proceed. Mr. Preston.
Mr. Chairman, I make the motion that the application before the PAC be tabled and the applicant come back with additional information regarding the septic system with discussions with public health to ensure that that can accommodate 15 to 30 plus people. 2, the well, again, there's a concentration of users in that area, especially with the weather conditions in Canada last year. You're going from residential to institutional. Abbreviated water flow test be completed. The staff have concerns about the parking. A proper parking lot plan be provided, including a stormwater plan, plan showing 3-meter buffer plus a privacy fence to address the concerns of the neighbors. Yeah, privacy fence was included with the buffer.
Okay. That being, can I have any seconder on that? Kendall?
I'll
Oh,
second
oh,
it.
Oh, hang on.
Gonna repeat,
What do you have?
Brent, can you read number 2?
Yeah.
Second.
With regards to the well, applicant do an abbreviated water flow test as there's a significant change in the consumption of that facility, going from residential to institutional use. And again, deal with, again, abbreviated water flow test, same as what a subdivision applicant would have to do. And especially, like I said, with the weather conditions being encountered in the last 12 months with the drought, that be addressed. The other option was a proper parking lot plan, including you got the parking and the stormwater plan.
I have public health confirmation that it can support the amount of people for the septic.
If for 30-plus people.
It was 15, it's only 15. This application's only for 15.
Okay, well, 15-plus people.
Yeah.
Number 2, water flow test.
Yeah. Abbreviated water, whatever we,
Okay, abbreviated water study.
Could I respectfully speak?
No.
no,
Number 3, parking.
Adequate parking?
adequate park,
Speak there.
yeah, sorry. Adequate parking plan as requested by the town staff to be signed off by town engineering department and a stormwater plan.
And buffering.
And 3-meter buffering
And a privacy fence.
plus the privacy fence.
The fence should be in such a manner that the children can't get access to their property from the daycare's property.
Yeah. I guess,
know it's a privacy fence, but
I do have a question.
a little bit more problem.
Regarding the fence, I do have a question for the applicant. When you purchased the property, was the property surveyed? Okay, please put in the condition, one of the conditions that the property be surveyed by a surveyor licensed in the province of New Brunswick, and the survey markers to be properly placed, identified, so as the fence will be clearly on the respective property lines.
Okay, do you want to read that? Can you? Or I can if I can. I can't see it. So.
Okay, so the PAC votes to table the temporary use, that of a daycare, for a maximum of 15 children at 205 Pettingill Road, PID 251447. The following terms and conditions must be considered. Septic public health confirmation that it can support the amount of children 15 plus. Abbreviated water study. Adequate parking plan signed off by town engineers. 4, 3-meter buffer plus privacy fence. And did we want to add with no access to, sorry, what did you say, Kendall? No access to neighboring properties?
Well, the children should keep the children off the gentleman's property.
The privacy fence.
Yeah, it just can't be like a little privacy fence, it needs to be something.
Fence has adequate to limit access to the private property. Limit access to private property.
Oh, the one on the stormwater, or sorry, not on the stormwater and the abbreviated water flow.
Speak there.
Oh, sorry. With regards to stormwater plan and the abbreviated water flow testing, being conducted by engineer licensed in the province of New Brunswick.
And you got the survey, right? The lot
Yes,
survey.
and then adequate parking plan signed off by town engineering. 3-meter buffer plus privacy fence that will limit access to private property. Property to be surveyed by a licensed surveyor and property lines identified.
Yep. She has water
I
plan.
added stormwater management plan
Okay.
in with number 2, okay.
Dwight, you want to chime in there before we get too far? Oh, Jennifer, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Just to note that the motion did fail, but we're just checking in with Robert's rules. The member, only a member who voted with the prevailing side, which I believe you voted you voted no, Brent. You were in support with, no, exactly. So you're on the prevailing side. And so you do have the right to move to reconsider. So this is what we're under now, is reconsider. So if you're tabling for further information, be specific, like that you want more information about the septic system, et cetera. But I think you're getting too far into the weeds with the fence with 2-meter height.
Okay.
There's some detail that's getting a bit into the conditions that we would be establishing of an approval. So you're just looking for more information to
Yeah,
come back
okay.
from
How
the
they're gonna address
applicant. So
how they're gonna
just
address current issues.
sort of addressing current issues and be specific to the items that you want to be returned.
Yep.
Stormwater plan, the parking concerns the town has, the septic and the water.
Okay, perfect. Kendall, you had something?
I still think when the applicant comes back that they should address the fence. Like, it doesn't have to be detailed, they just need to state that they'll agree to put one up in a certain location.
Yeah.
Yep.
Would address the concerns of
So exactly, bring
of
back,
the neighbors.
Bring back a plan.
bring back a plan showing. what the
And I
fence-
did have, I always like to check with staff if there's any other advice that they would give us. And when we're moving forward in this direction, like, if that's all your advice, that's great, but I guess I wouldn't want to go in the wrong direction just because we don't have the experience you have.
Anything else, Jennifer, Dwight? No, we're good? Okay, perfect.
A question, if you have a second.
Yep,
Just through Mr. Chair to Mr. Preston. Looking at the conditions that you talked about, they're basically highlighted in the potential recommendations of the 15 items that the town put forward in our memo. Judging by the amount of costs associated with doing all these tests, these are all things that would have to be done if we granted them temporary use. Would it not make sense to grant them temporary use with the following conditions and add a couple conditions to it, rather than them having to go through all of these potential costs and not actually get approval when they come back to us?
thank you, Mark, but I think we got a motion on the floor. But go ahead,
That was
Dwight.
just a question.
Yep.
I'll address that.
Hang on, Dwight. Go ahead, Dwight.
So, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So the item has been tabled because the motion is that there's additional information required in order for PAC to make the decision. The recommendations, and again, I'd have to go through them, but if the recommendations are subject to after the fact, it's like if you do all these things, I think the motion that's put forward is have some of that information up front to allow for further discussion, to allow PAC to make that decision.
Okay. Thank you. Did you get that, Mark? It's already been tabled, so. And we need a seconder on that. You seconded, Kendall seconded it, that's right, so. Moved by Brent, seconded by by Kendall. So now we have to have a vote on that, please. That, we're tabling that item until we receive further information.
Item 2, should I not say by certified engineer?
Yes, I'll add those
Okay.
details in. See you again.
Done. That motion's carried, 4 votes to 3. That item's been tabled. So please work at the town, Ms. Schreier, to have all your necessary documentation and items in place. Thank you very much. That being, we're moving on to item 7B, 22 Hammond View Terrace. Could the applicant come up to the podium and state their name for the record, please? Mary Benson. Jennifer's going to introduce that item for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee. The application that's before you is for a home daycare with a maximum of 5 children at 22 Hammond View Terrace. The application's also seeking a gross floor area variance, and as you see in the staff memo, there's a foundation elevation variance for a detached garage. The lot contains 1,381 square meters of area and is located in the rural. The request before the committee is for the 5-child daycare, and that is subject to section 6L1 of the zoning bylaw. The applicant intends to provide daycare services Monday to Friday, 7:30 to 4:30 p.m. from her home. She's able to meet all of the provisions in 6L1 of zoning bylaw 38, except for one, and that is the floor area. She intends to use the basement portion of the home for the children. During those times, but I think you're using it as your basement during the other hours of the day, but I might be mistaken.
Sorry, say that again?
The basement will be used by you during the day as the daycare, but it just becomes part of your home outside of those hours.
Yeah, mostly for the daycare, but yes, yeah.
So a gross floor area of 47.4 square meters would be required to allow this application to proceed as presented. The bylaw allows for 32 square meters or 25% of the total area of the home. In addition to the daycare use, during the application process, it was noted by staff that there was a detached garage on site that there was no permit on file for. I spoke with the applicant, who was very obliging and apologetic. And through the process, we came to learn that the foundation of the detached building was below the 1 meter that's required by the bylaw. So in addition to the daycare, you'll also see that there's a recommendation to approve a foundation elevation variance for this application. Notice was sent to property owners within 100 meters, and at the time of the writing of the report and up to today, no concerns have been received. I'm available to answer any questions the committee might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. You would receive the same package we did in the mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking some questions?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Kendall.
I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the home occupation of daycare under section 6K of the zoning bylaw number 038 to provide daycare services to no more than 5 children, and approve the associated 47.4 square meter gross floor variance from section 6K 2D from the same bylaw, and subject to the following terms and conditions. Number 1, the daycare facility in operation must comply with all provincial regulations and conditions as may be set by the authority having jurisdiction. Number 2, the daycare facility in operation shall comply with all provisions zoning bylaw 038, section 6L1 and 6K2, and all other applicable zoning bylaw provisions. Number 3, a copy of provincial approvals to operate shall be submitted to the town for its records and reference. Number 4, any proposed increase in number of children attending the daycare will require the approval of the Planning Advisory Committee. Number 5, there shall be no on-street parking. Number 6, the daycare shall not be occupied until the operator provides the building inspector with evidence that the premises meet all applicable building and fire code requirements. And further, that PAC approves a 2 decimal 2.5, foundation elevation variance from section 6F1 of zoning bylaw 038 to permit detached garage to be sited on subject lot. Subject is located approximately 1.5 meters below the center line elevation of the abutting street. And B, subject to the following terms and conditions. Number one, the landowner enter into a standard hold harmless agreement with the town, relinquishing the town of any liabilities that may be experienced as a result of this foundation elevation variance approval.
Thank you, Kendall. Can I have, oh, Jennifer, you want to add something?
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a bit of process. Sorry, you didn't ask if there's anyone for or against the item, which you're supposed to do 3 times. So
Okay.
just to keep everything
Yeah, do
on
that
up
right
and
now
up.
before we get a seconder. Sorry about that.
And one more thing, just for further clarification, the second portion of the recommendation, it should say 2.5 meters, the word meters, the foundation elevation
Yeah.
variance, so,
Okay.
thank you.
Sorry, before we have a seconder, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, we have a motion on the floor already. Can we have a seconder on that? Mr. Guest?
I'll second that.
Thank you. With that being, any debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously, in 5 to 7 business days. You have a letter in the mail. Please work with the town to have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Move on to item C. Item 7C has been deferred until next meeting. We're gonna move on to item 7D, 80 Millennium Drive. I think Mr. Hatfield had to step down on that one. With that, could the applicant please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please?
Hi, I'm Chantal Beck.
Okay, Jennifer, you want to introduce that item for us?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The committee might remember a few years ago, we did approve a doggy daycare at 80 Millennium Drive. This basically business is replacing that at that same location, so using the same facility, but it's a different business. So with that, I can tell you that the lot is located in the Business Park Commercial Zone, which does permit a kennel use, and what's before you is a similar to or compatible use because a doggy daycare is not listed as a permitted use in our bylaw. Section 3D1 does provide the PAC with the ability to permit a use that is similar to or compatible with a use that is already permitted in that zone, or in the zone for which it's located, and to set terms and conditions. The applicant has indicated that there will be no change in the approved numbers. The previous business was approved for 40 dogs. They would be capped at 40. The outdoor play limit would also remain the same, which was capped at 10 with the previous owner, and would be capped as with 10 dogs in the outside fenced-in area at any given time. The daycare hours, there's 3 different businesses sort of happening here. So there's the doggy daycare, which is Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then sometimes on Saturday. There's professional training that's available on site from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday, and sometime again on Saturday. And then professional grooming services available Monday to Friday, 7 to 8, and again, some hours available on Saturday. They're closed on Sunday. There is an outdoor play area that was established by the previous owner. They will be using that area as well if this application is approved. The only concern that staff has about that is if there, at any time that it wanted to be expanded or to be moved, I believe that it should come back to PAC for that decision. So that has been included in my recommendations. We did send out notification to neighboring properties within 100 meters. And at the time of the writing of the report and up until this very moment, no concerns have been received from this application. I'm available to answer questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jennifer. You would receive the same application we did in mail. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you some questions?
Nope.
Thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Not so much a question, but it's the same number of dogs that were there before. But I think we had something in recommendations about the cleaning up of the.
Yeah,
dog.
I actually have all of the information from the previous owner, and we're gonna follow all of their.
Okay.
It'll be the exact same, that aspect
And then
of
you,
it.
you put it just in the garbage or have to take it someplace special?
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to go anywhere special. The only bylaw that really, or I guess rule that they have is that it has to be bagged, which it always is anyways.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Brenda. Any other questions for the applicant from members of PAC? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item or online? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions? Mr. Guest.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I put forward the motion that the PAC approve the canine care business Chantel's Wagging Tails at 80 Millennium Drive, PID 173435, as being similar to or compatible with the kennel under Section 3D1 of the zoning bylaw number 038, subject to the following terms and conditions. A maximum of 40 dogs permitted to attend the daycare services at any one time. Number 2, a maximum of 10 dogs are permitted to be located in the fenced and outdoor play area associated with the business at any given time between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. No dogs are permitted in the outdoor space prior to 9 a.m. or after 5 p.m. except for emergencies only. Number 3, the hours of operations are Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., Saturday 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and closed on Sundays. And number 4, dog training classes and grooming services must be conducted within the confines of the building and must be concluded by 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Number 5, dogs shall not be allowed to run at large and must be located inside the building at all times except when located within the fenced-in play area associated with the business. Number 6, dogs are not permitted to bark or howl so as to cause a public nuisance while they are located in the outdoor play area. Number 7, any changes to the fenced-in outdoor dog play area associated with the business, including but not limited to additional outdoor space or change in location, must first obtain approval from the PAC. Number 8, the business owner enters into a development agreement with the town. All expenses associated with the agreement are the responsibility of the business owner. And number 9, development and or building permits must be received from the town prior to any alterations to the interior of the building prior to any construction.
Thank you, Mr. Guest. Can I have a seconder on that, please? Mr. Preston?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried unanimously. Please work with the town, have all necessary paperwork and documentation in place, and you have your letter in the mail in the next 5 to 7 business days, and best of luck. You're welcome. With that being, we're going to move on to item 7E, 18 Trillium Drive. Could the applicant please come up to the podium and state your name for the record, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Harry Bang.
Harry Yang?
Bang.
Bang?
B-A-N-G. Yep.
Yeah, Yang, okay. Mr. Yang, Jennifer, you want to introduce that item for us?
It's Bang. B-A-N-G. Sorry.
B-A-N-G, okay, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to the committee members. Before you is a request for a 185 square meter lot area variance to permit a semi-detached dwelling development at 18 Trillium Drive. The lot is located in an R1 zone and contains 1,145 square meters of area, is serviced by on-site drilled well and municipal sewer. Table 3 requires a lot area of 1,330 square meters for a semi-detached building, which contains 2 main dwelling units, when it is serviced by the municipal sewer and an on-site well. We did send out notification letters to properties within 100 meters. We did receive 4 letters of concern. They've been included in your package. Traffic concerns, just a brief overview. Traffic concerns, impacts to property values. They don't meet the minimum requirements established in the zoning bylaw. And zoning is for single-family homes built in a style similar with the existing neighborhood. I can speak to the last one. The R1 zoning does allow for single and two-family, so this area is zoned for two-family. It's the only thing, they have the lot frontage that's required, but the lot area is lacking by 185 square meters. So the request before the committee is to approve the lot area variance to allow for the semi-detached development. I'm available to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mr. Bang, you would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking any questions?
Yeah, you know, like just reading the reports there, I see that we are short of like the 185 square meter. So, yeah, you know, the variance there. So I think we can, you know, if need be, we can definitely, you know, redesign for the footage here to make sure that there is enough variance between the two lots. And also, even parking wise in the front end there, I think we are, do we have, Jennifer, do we have 4 parking spaces in those designs? Sorry.
Go ahead, Jennifer, when you're ready.
I think parking was a concern for those 2 dwellings there.
So, sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, there's an attached garage to each one of them at the front of the building so that they can contain 1 car, and then it appears that there's enough area in the parking areas to support additional parking of at least 1 more vehicle for each unit. So it does appear that there's enough area there to accommodate at least 4 vehicles.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I think those are kind of things that, you know, might be a concern, you know, like overload of parking around the area, street parking, you want to keep all that, you know, keep the cars off the streets there if possible, right? So, you know, I mean, our design there could be, you know, amended if need be, you know, depending on what the group in Packer says.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from PAC members to Mr. Bang? None being, is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Anyone in the audience or online willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Brent?
I have a question for staff. So the motion is to approve a 185 square meter lot variance, but now, so I guess my question, the size of the residence isn't gonna matter to it, it's the size of the lot that we're, right, because Mr. Bang said he would change the design, that's still not gonna address the variance, correct?
Jennifer?
That's correct. Through you, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
that is correct.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you. Go ahead, Brent.
I'll make the motion. Planning Advisory Committee approve the 185 square meter lot variance from section 8C1 of zoning bylaw number 0 through 8 to permit the development of a semi-detached dwelling and not being for distinct ownership at 18 Trillium Drive, PID 302-72306, subject to the following terms and conditions. The finished elevations of the front yard must not create a line of sight issues for driveway egress. Development permit and building permit are issued by the town prior to any development occurring on the subject lot. And 3, site plan to be developed showing all off-site or off-street parking accommodated on the lot. A site plan.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Number 3, site plan showing all parking off-street and accommodated on the lot.
Thank you, Brent. I have a seconder on that. Kendall?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any debate on that motion? Brenda?
Not so much a debate, a concern.
Okay.
This gentleman always controls lot 14 as well as 18. And if that picture had gone out with the drawings on it instead of the big blank space, I think the neighbors would have known that's the first part of the duplexes, and that lot beside it is going to be 2 more duplexes. So you would have 4 rentals on that corner. And that's my concern, that I don't think the public was very well informed of that. I know this is just about lot 18, but we know from that picture, lot 14 is on the, I guess, on the books for probably another one. And that's my concern.
So lot 14 and 18, you're saying, could be 2 duplexes? Is that?
Yeah, they should see that little map right there.
I can't see it. I'm looking at the ortho.
Right
Can
there.
you bring up the ortho?
Oh, that's just a big blank space, but this is one here. No, it's a big blank space.
Well, the one shows one duplex right there, right?
Okay,
That's one duplex.
go to the picture that came in with the staff report. Bring that up. This picture, can you make that larger? We can see that's one's drawn in, and the lot beside it, number 14, you can see where it's supposed to be also. That's my problem. The public was not informed. That's gonna be 2.
And they're allowed those on the same property, right, Dwight?
No, it's other lot.
2 separate properties, only talking one property.
I know, that's
Thank
my
you,
problem.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So the application that's come for the PAC is specific to lot 18. That's what's being considered. So in terms of the public being notified, they were notified of the request with respect to lot 18. So that information has been conveyed. If that information had come in and the application was for both and we had said we're only considering 18, then to me, the public would not have been informed appropriately. As for what's happening on 14, that is a site plan that was submitted. It was provided to PAC because the orientation of that building was changed relative to the curve. So that's why it was captured in this report. What happens on lot 14 has not been established at this point. That would be under a separate application to the Planning Advisory Committee. I would also indicate that there is an additional 2 units within that particular development, that particular subdivision. And the use is permitted. It's 2-family is permitted within this zone. So in terms of every lot, essentially, in terms of a zoning perspective, every lot in that subdivision is permitted to have 2 units. Whether the 2 units are side by each, or they're accessory, or one on top of the other, it's the number of units. So the ask is for the use to be, for the property to be used as 2 units. It's asking for a variance that's in the order of about 15%. So, thank you.
Thank you, Dwight.
That's my concern.
But really, if there was no variance, that would never come to PAC.
No, if there's no variance, it wouldn't have came to PAC, is that correct? If there was no variance, it wouldn't have came to PAC. Okay, thank you. With that being, can we have a seconder on that? Motion that Kendall seconded it. Any further debate on that motion? None being, can we have a vote, please? That motion's carried by a vote of 5 to 1. 5 to 7 business days, you have approval in the mail. Please work with the town to have all necessary documentation in place. And best of luck.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
You're
everyone
welcome.
else there.
Thank you. That being, we're gonna move on to item 8. Information and items for discussion, none being, we're gonna move on to item 9. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Sue,
I move to adjourn the meeting.
thank you. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Brent, thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Everyone.